by leaps and bounds. Over the last 5 years, massive amount of inventory has come in. The term used from the dais today has been only about investors. But my question is, how many actual users are coming in the transactions that have taken place over the last, say, maybe year or 2 years or 3 years, and maybe going forward the next year?
Okay, I'll give you an example. It's a very valid question, first of all. It's a classic this thing about in India whether the person is a buyer or is an investor, and ultimately investor also has to ultimately exit to a end user, because it cannot be a continuous spin. Let's take the example of Noida. Let's take the example of Noida, suburb of Delhi. Land is pretty much democratized, if I can use that word, because if anybody is having about 10 odd crores, he can actually go to the local government and acquire land. The government has a payment facility which they sell you land over a 10-year time frame. What it has done, that Noida, I don't know if you know, but Noida has emerged, Noida, Greater Noida Belt, has emerged as one of the 3 suburbs in Asia next to a large city where I can get a house for rupee equivalent of 25 lakh rupees, a good 2 BHK house at a 30 to 45 minute distance from the city center. Now, it is an unintended consequence, but it has ramifications on what you talked about demand. Obviously, the way the funding structure works, as you very rightly mentioned, whenever a developer is launching a project, because of lack of faith and lack of proper process, the first set of investors are the ones who are slightly high risk investors or buyers. The number of buyers who are end users would probably be significantly lower as compared to the number of investors. There is definite demand, it's a typical pyramid issue. There's a definite demand in this, that's what we were mentioning in the previous source, between the 15 to 75 lakh rupee category, where we are targeting a person who is earning anywhere in the region of 30,000 rupees to 1 lakh rupees per month, per family. To tell you, the problem today that we are facing is that because of higher land prices, lack of understanding and lack of a proper estimation as to when I can get the approvals from the developer's perspective, and relatively old techniques of construction, because of which the typical time that I am taking to construct is relatively much more, is creating a lot of complications, and that is primarily the issue. Demand, there is tremendous demand. Noida, again, taking that example, 300 odd thousand houses, fully bought, most of them are 75 to 80% ready, bought by users who have contributed 60 to 80% of the house price. The way I look at it, if a person has given 60 to 80% of the price, I am viewing him as a user. If I have, a lot of people do this punting on a flat, which is he says, it's a 5,000 rupee a square foot flat, I'll put 10% money, when he takes the second installment, I'll flip. Those are standard investor models. Those kind of things move up. At a pan-India level, whether there is demand across all segments, I don't think so. I don't also think that there is oversupply, because while there is an oversupply in terms of number of projects launched, I think the supply factor gets severely constrained when we talk about ready units available for possession. So if I am a buyer today and I want to move into a ready property, very rarely will you have a property in India where a property is lock and key and not being able to be sold. Wherever it is not sold, it is because the developer wants to hold on to the prices, and not because he is unable to sell if he reduces by 10 to 20%. This so-called stuff that we read in the media a lot of times about unsold inventory, ready stock, I don't think that there is something called significant amount of ready stock unsold at whatever price. There is ample demand. It is just that because of various factors like funding, land acquisition prices, cost of funding, I may just want to hold on to my stock. I don't know if I've answered your question specifically, but that's what we feel in terms of demand.
What about Bombay market in specifics? I mean, Delhi and Gurgaon, it's not relevant to us.
Pardon me?
What about the Bombay market specifically?
Bombay, so when we talk about this 2 crore, 3 crore plus category, if everything that is launched gets ready, I don't think there's enough demand to consume that kind of stuff. But how it happens, typically there will be a market correction, there will be projects where the developer will not be having money because it's not sold to complete, and that technically is not supply. He talked about, if you hear what he talked about, the emerging areas, most of the areas that he talked about were except with the exception of Mulund, were areas which are in sub 10 to 12,000 rupees a square foot, where you can get a unit for 1 to 2 crore rupees. I think the even sweeter spot is 75 lakh to 1 crore rupees in Bombay. Bombay, there's a lot of areas which are coming up, and with this connectivity thing, example, the amount of time that I will take to reach Panvel 6 months back and after the Eastern Freeway is different. The way people have started looking at that zone in terms of, can I stay there if I'm a 1 hour radius? I know people who are saying, I want to stay in Chembur and work in South Bombay rather than staying in Bandra and work in South Bombay, because Chembur to South Bombay is probably much faster. Now, that is why the fundamental of infrastructure comes in. Bombay perspective, higher end, if everything gets ready, not enough demand, but at this mid end, there is no problem.
So then would we be looking at a major correction, and would family office or investment advisors be right in recommending investment in property to their clients?
That is precisely why you need professional fund managers to tell you what is the right guy and whether the right risk mitigation is happening or not. See, please understand, ultimately, there are so many of them, you have to understand what kind of process is being done, or particular developer is following the particular process or not. Does he have financial closure? Does he have the right set of buyers? Does he have the process, technique, and most importantly, intent to actually complete the project?
Sorry to interrupt. I'm sure we won't be able to take more questions. We're running behind our schedules. So we can have questions personally from the speakers after the panel. So anything you'd like to say, Mr. Kapoor? So shall I just wrap it up?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, panelists. I will just request Mr. Aditya Gadge to come onto the stage and felicitate our distinguished panelists. Would request a quick group photograph, please.